First Women's Regional Rights Convention was held in Seneca Falls, New York, 1848. Angry women who craved equal rights was the purpose of the convention. Women were taught social and religious rights. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott were the people who ran the convention. Presidents of the nation's women's suffrage or what they were, and 20 years of association is how long they served.
Since 300 people attended, both the presidents discussed 12 resolutions in the Declaration of Sentiments. The Declaration of Sentiments discussed the right of family, education, religion, morals, and politics. The resolutions made sure that women and men had equal rights. Men were seen as inferior to women, and so therefore the resolutions made sure that women were equal to them. The resolutions made sure that women had equal access to church, religion, and equal access to jobs. However, the ninth resolution didn't get passed, and which was the right to vote. This made women withdraw their support from the movement and made people look at it as a bad thing.
First, we have to understand the traditional 19th century gender roles. Men dominated the public sphere by working, voting, or participating in politics, while women stayed home to cook, clean, and raise children. There were restrictions in many states on women voting, owning property, and having control of their own income. One woman who advocated for women's rights in the 19th century was Elizabeth Cady Stanton, a homemaker in Seneca Falls, New York. Born into a progressive family, Stanton grew up highly educated and enjoyed an active social and political life before settling down with a family. But Stanton felt stifled as just a wife and mother to 7 children, longing for a life outside the home. She soon found it in a local group of Quaker women who embraced equality, community, and activism. They invited her to a small social gathering, a tea party, which included a Quaker activist named Lucretia Mott. Mott and Stanton had met years before at an anti-slavery convention in London, but they were denied entry due to their gender. It was during the tea party that Stanton lamented the injustice of a woman's unequal status in society. Her words resonated with the others, so the women decided to hold a gathering that would call attention to the social, civil, and religious rights of women, the first of its kind in the United States. It became known as the Seneca Falls Convention, taking place on July 19th and 20th, 1848, with over 300 people in attendance. Like Stanton and Mott, many in attendance were also active in the anti-slavery movement, including Frederick Douglass, a former slave and abolitionist who was one of the few men and the only African American to attend. At the convention, they read the Declaration of Sentiments, a document drafted by Stanton and modeled after the Declaration of Independence, declaring, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal." The sentiments outlined the civil and political rights denied to American women, which included education, property ownership, child custody in the event of a divorce, and most importantly, the right to vote. On the second day of the convention, 12 resolutions were passed and signed by 68 women and 32 men. The Seneca Falls Convention was the first time that American women demanded a change, and it caused quite a stir around the country. Many newspapers mocked them with unflattering political cartoons, while columns ridiculed the convention as dull and uninteresting or insane and ludicrous. One writer declared equal rights for women to be a monstrous injury to all mankind. The wave of negative press was too humiliating for some of the participants to handle, particularly those who had signed the Declaration of Sentiments. Several went as far as withdrawing their names from the document and joining the opposition. But public shaming didn't stop the movement. The impact and promise of the Seneca Falls Convention was undeniable. Women like Elizabeth Cady Stanton felt a renewed sense of purpose and threw themselves headlong into the fight for equal rights. A month later, a second, larger convention was held in Rochester, with the Declaration of Sentiments gaining 107 additional signatures. The Seneca Falls Convention would signal the birth of the women's rights movement. One particular resolution in the Declaration of Sentiments would evolve into a full-fledged crusade, the demand for women's suffrage. Decades of political organizing, marches, and protests would ultimately result in the 1920 passage of the 19th Amendment, which guaranteed women the right to vote.
Worcester, Massachusetts, 1850 was planned by an anti-slavery society and collected more than 1,000 people in Brindley Hall.
Owning property, higher education, medicine, and ministry was the main purpose of this convention. The press was a major part because the press openly ridiculed the women for their appearance or wearing pants and said they were attempting to abolish the Bible and the Constitution.
Syracuse, New York, 1852. First meeting to talk about coerced and ribald speech.
They discussed strategy regarding the continuation as working as a group by appointing a central committee.
Cleveland, Ohio, 1853. Attracting 1,500 people, William Henry Channing suggested the women make declarations of women's rights.
He wanted women to petition for women seeking suffrage, equal inheritance rights, equal guardianships, divorce for wives married to alcoholics, no tax for women until given the right to vote, and right to trial before a jury of female peers. The Declaration of Sentiments was later added onto the letter, and they became one thing.
Nixon Hall, Cincinnati, Ohio, 1855.
This convention made sure that women knew that the aim for the conventions was for the equality of women and men.
Broadway Tabernacle, New York, 1856.
This convention was once again to remind women of their rights. Mozart Hall, New York, 1858.
William Lloyd Garrison argued that women should run and hold elective office. He also made sure women knew that they were superior and deserved equal rights to men. Hall, New York, 1859.
New resolutions of the convention stated that women were allowed to trial in front of a jury of female peers, the right to vote, and if taxed, she's allowed to have her own wage, and the right to person, property, children, and home.
The Cooper Union, New York, 1860.
Women were given the right to divorce in cases of insanity, cruelness, and drunkenness.